Welcome to our tutorial about control events. After we add controls to our form, we need these controls to interact with one another, with the system, as well as with the user. Now this interaction needs to be triggered by something. For example, if a user clicks on a button, that's what's known as a click event. The code written inside this click event is then executed. I'm going to double-click on button 1. Visual Basic automatically creates what are called wrapper lines for this click event. The first line represents the beginning of the event. Here's the name of the control and the name of the event. The last line represents the end of the event. The code that goes in between these lines, it can be one or many lines of code. Whatever is there will be executed when the event occurs. Right now, we've just got the wrapper lines. When we enter some code between these wrapper lines, it becomes what's called a block of code. Each control has a number of different events assigned to it. We can see these events on the right side of our drop-down menu. The events that we've already used are seen in bold. The minus sign on the left-hand side visually helps us organize our code. When I mouse over, I can see the code that's inside after I've collapsed it. Here we also see numbers. These correspond to a line of code. If you don't see these numbers, go to Tools, Options, Basic, General, and check Display Line Numbers. Let's click OK. When I double-click on the button, Visual Basic creates code for the default event associated with this control. That's the click event in our case. If I want to use a different event, I select the control. In the Property window, select Events, and now I can choose an event from this list. Here you can see this click event has already been used. Let's say, for example, I want to use a mouse over as my event. I double-click, and we get a second set of wrapper lines for this new event. Here's the same control name, but a different event, mouse move. We also see some code inside parentheses. We're going to look at this later in this tutorial. For now, we just need to know that these two lines represent the beginning and end of the event. As I mentioned before, the event can be triggered by any number of sources. It could be another program, the system, a user action, and so on. As you see, mouse move appears in my drop-down menu in bold, indicating that this event is in use in our application already. In your choice of event, be cautious of your impact on the end user. Let me choose another event, for example. Let's say mouse up. From the user's point of view, there really isn't any difference between mouse up and click. It feels identical to the user in most cases. So why do we as programmers have these two options? Well, that's because when you write code, there's always more than one way to execute a particular action. Now, this happens to be a very simple example, but do keep this in mind as you mix and match your various types of click events. All right, let's add one more event, mouse down. See here, figuratively speaking, I can replace this click event with either mouse up or mouse down. But I can also use these two events in conjunction with each other. For example, the first half of the click is a mouse down. Our first block of code can cover this event. The second part of the click is mouse up. We can write a second block of code to handle this particular event. And this concludes our tutorial about control events. In our next tutorial, we're going to write our first program.